Today, we are going to be looking at a video called AI Does Something Horrifying to Human Thinking, and it's from House of L-AI, and it's an L dash. I fucking hate it. But I have not seen this video before. I don't know what side of the aisle the video comes down on, and we are going to be doing some Slay the Spire while we are taking a look. So let's go ahead and see.
College students are rapidly losing the ability to read. That was one of the big headlines this
Mamad says, weed can't damage you. It's an all-natural plant straight from the earth. Yeah, so is arsenic. That doesn't mean anything. Do you know how many all-natural plants are poisonous, Mamad? That's not an argument at all. Like, in literally any world ever conceived, ever. That's also, like, okay, so what you did there is called the naturalistic fallacy. The naturalistic fallacy is the idea that something is good because it is natural. That's not how that works. Anywho, back to this
week, and if you haven't seen it, you probably had one of two reactions. Either, well, obviously, AI is destroying education, or this is overblown moral panic, or, maybe you had a third reaction, which was, wait, college students were reading before this? As someone who has graded papers at college, the bar was already kind of on the floor. All of these reactions, however, skip over the part that actually matters, which is what the research says when you say.
So this is one thing that I actually really like. I really enjoy it when somebody actually dives into the research on this instead of freaking out or like blindly defending. The worst thing in the world is somebody who will blindly defend AI without doing any research, but the second worst thing in the world is the person that will also do no research whatsoever, and because they know generally that it's bad, they will then like grab onto any argument at all that says it's bad and not actually research into any of those arguments. It's kind of infuriating. It's actually a little infuriating. Because, like, I think I've actually had the whole, like, just not mental breakdown, but just, like, angry breakdown on stream a handful of times. Where I've just been like, guys, I really, really, really need you. Every single one of you, if possible, to be better about having good reasons against things. It's like somebody who wants to defend trans rights. They're morally correct. Everything about that is correct. But then they start saying some like weird shit about how, well, actually, the space alien god Verna gave you your gender, so it's correct in that way, and the doctor needs to transition you because of that. You're just sitting there like tilting your head going, what the fuck are you talking about? There's not a single person ever is going to listen to that and think that's a good reason. Even though you're on the right side of things.
Sit down and read it. So I did. I went through the studies, the MIT brain imaging data, the Carnegie Mellon survey of knowledge workers, the large-scale cognitive assessments, the counterpoint studies that say AI can actually improve learning under the right conditions. And what I found is more nuanced, more interesting, and more important than any headline is going to give you, because this is ultimately not just a story about students, but rather a story about what happens to human cognition, yours, mine,
Okay, I just, nope. I have a nervous tick when I hear thesis, counter-thesis, and I know that I shouldn't. I know that that is completely irrational, but as soon as I hear thesis, counter-thesis, my fight or flight triggers. And we are here in my triggered fight or flight.
Everyone's. When we start outsourcing our thinking to machines, and it has implications that go well beyond the classroom. My name is Elle, I have a PhD in computer science, and I analyze AI developments to understand what's actually happening beneath the hype, which is basically a very polite way of saying I spend my weekends reading 80-page PDFs, so you don't have to. You're welcome. Please don't ask about my social life, though. In this video, I'm going to walk through what the science actually says about AI and how we think.
Little EP Girl says, I've had a pagan seriously tell me that Loki gave me my gender identity. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I pulled the God gave you the different gender thing out of my butthole. I wasn't expecting somebody to actually have that experience. That is silly. That is silly. That is very, very silly. And this is coming from somebody who has friends who are pagan. I think if somebody were to try to use that as the reason for something as opposed to like actually digging into the science of how and why gender, that in every possible way, I will just laugh. I will just laugh. I'm sorry. It is silly when we have an actual naturalistic reasoning for something. You can just use that. It is A-okay. You can use that and also believe the God part of it. You can do both. You can do both. It is perfectly reasonable to do both. This is the reason why scientists do the whole, they are all naturalists once they walk into the lab. Shit. This is why. This is why.
Both in children and adults, the concerning parts and the hopeful parts, because both of those exist. Then I want to talk about what this means for education, for work, and for the developing minds of the youngest people in our society. And at the end, I want to share my vision for how I think this should
Sarah Sumnaris, thank you very much for the follow.
Be done going forward, and you can tell me whether you agree with it or if I got it totally wrong. If you find this analysis useful, please give this video a like and subscribe, and the best way to support this work and keep it free and without any gatekeeping at all is through Ko-fi or a channel membership. The links to everything are down below. Now, let's start with the research, because the research is where the nuance lives. As always, academic papers can be pretty dense, but my job here is to translate it so we can all have the same conversation irrespective of our background knowledge. I won't use any jargon, I promise. If I accidentally say backpropagation or stochastic gradient descent, feel free to unsubscribe, but please don't, just judge me in the comments instead. Anyway, the study that generated the most attention is from MIT's Media Lab, a preprint titled Your Brain on ChatGPT by Cosmina et al. 2025. The researchers fitted 54 participants aged 18 to 39 with EEG headsets that measured brain activity across 32 neural regions while they wrote SAT-style essays. One group used ChatGPT, one group used Google Search, one group used nothing, just their own brains, which in 2026 feels less like a control group and more like a dystopian episode of Survivor.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like if you are used to offloading a task to a machine, it's kind of just basic understanding that you will get worse at doing that task, because the way that we get good at tasks is by repeatedly doing them. Like, that is how we improve as people. So, yeah, that just makes sense.
The results were striking. Participants who used ChatGPT showed the weakest neural connectivity of all three groups, the lowest brain engagement across areas associated with memory, attention, critical thinking, and creative reasoning. Search engine users showed moderate engagement. Brain-only writers, however, showed the strongest, most distributed neural networks. 83% of the AI users could not quote a single line from the essays they had just written. They had total cognitive amnesia. They were basically living out the plot of The Hangover, but instead of waking up with a tiger in a hotel room, they just woke up with a 2,000-word essay on The Great Gatsby that they had absolutely no memory of creating.
Yeah, so what that just shrieks to me is, and I think it's probably obvious for everybody right now as well, but like, that shrieks to me that instead of trying to do any work of any kind, we're talking about people who wanted to write a paragraph, got ChatGPT to get the paragraph built up for them, and then just went on to the next paragraph, instead of actually sitting down, doing research, learning anything. Like, you know that feeling where you eventually just kind of have something click for you? You know that feeling? Where, like, you've bashed your head against something, and then just everything just kind of falls into place? That feeling's great. That feeling is just stupidly fantastic. You know how you get that feeling? You actually do a thing. You learn how to actually do shit. That's how you get the feeling of, oh, this is actually doable. I can actually manage this. You don't get it when you just offload the task every single time. Now, granted, this is not me saying never offload your tasks. That would be hypocritical of me as somebody who pays artists for work all the time. I am offloading the task of doing artwork, but I also realize that when it comes to artwork, I am only interested for myself in the end result of a thing. The process fascinates me, but actually doing the process is not something that I find enjoyment in. And because I don't find enjoyment in that, I would rather pay somebody else who does find enjoyment in that to do that work. And it also means that people who have developed skills that I have not developed get paid for the skills that they have developed, that again, I have not developed. Kimna says, bet teachers miss Wikipedia right now. Oh, there are teachers rolling around right now that just are desperate for the days of Wikipedia isn't a source. They are desperate to go back to those simpler times, I promise you. I promise you.
Their brains basically went into screensaver mode the moment they hit enter. Now, important caveats here. This is a preprint. It has not been peer-reviewed yet. The sample size is 54, which is very small. A 2026 critique by Stankovic et al. Flags methodological concerns. These are preliminary findings that need replication at scale, not settled clinical results. But the directional signal is consistent with every other study in this space. And the finding I want to highlight is this. In a fourth session, the ChatGPT users were reassigned to write without AI. Their brain activity did not return to normal. The cognitive debt persisted even after the tool was removed. So your brain essentially goes, oh, we're not doing the thinking thing anymore? Cool, I'm just going to take a nap in the corner. And then
I mean, yeah, that's how atrophy works. So when you have anything atrophy, it does not simply unatrophy. It doesn't stop immediately. You have to go retrain that thing. Like, I think that's kind of basic understood bits for everybody, right? Like, this is the reason why people end up having to go through therapy in general, like physical therapy, because you don't just get better at doing things the minute that you decide that you're going to do them the correct way. That's not how human brains work. That's not how anything works. So yeah, that makes sense. Like, that makes perfect sense. So much how I barely remember any Spanish because I just never used that skill. Yeah, if you're not using a skill, it's going to be gone. This is why I sit down and make commander decks so much with Magic the Gathering shit, because I have a skill for that, and I need to constantly be developing that skill in order to maintain the ability to produce stuff for my Magic the Gathering channel. If I don't do that, then I am just going to end up losing that skill. I have to keep on training it.
Just refuses to wake up. The Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft study 2025 is more robust. 319 knowledge workers, peer-reviewed, published at the CHI conference. The researchers analyzed 936 real-world examples of AI-assisted tasks and found a very clear pattern. The more confident a worker was in the AI's ability to complete a task, the less critical thinking they applied. Workers who trusted...
Yeah, so here's another thing. Just like, okay, I have said this a billion times. I'll say it a billion times again. AI is a tool. There are ways it can be used well. If you are choosing to use it as a tool for anything, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people fucking around you for your own cognition to double check everything it does. Not only so that you do not let yourself have a skill atrophy, because that is something that will happen and does happen. No, you also need to be doing this so that when the time comes and you do not have access to the calculator, basically, the ChatGPT calculator, you can still do it. It's like, you know how your teacher used to say, oh, you won't always have a calculator in your hand? They weren't saying that because you can just like super mega own them now by saying that we all have phones, so we have a calculator on hand. Like, no, the point of that was that the skill of being able to do math in your head is incredibly helpful, and you will use it for more things than just random fucking math problems. The entire point of learning how to do things correctly is because you never know when your brain is going to subconsciously need that particular skill. You have no way of knowing that. Yeah, you may have the ability to do addition with a calculator, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's perfectly fine. But if I'm in the middle of, just as a gaming example, right? This is going to be important to me because gaming is one of my things, right? For me, if I'm sitting there with a calculator trying to figure out everything going on with my turn, and I'm having to use a calculator for all of it, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my opponent's time. Instead, I could have been developing the skills of, like, quick mental math. The quick mental math skill was way more important than me trying to get, like, some arbitrary own on a high school teacher or some shit.
their own expertise, evaluated AI output carefully. Workers who trusted the AI let go of the wheel, and they didn't just let go of the wheel, they climbed into the back seat, put on a sleeping mask, and trusted a chatbot to drive them through a gentrified neighborhood at 60 miles an hour. The study warns of long-term over-reliance on the tool and diminished skill for independent problem solving. A larger study of 666 participants found a strong negative correlation between frequent AI use and critical thinking scores. In plain English, a negative correlation just means a seesaw effect. As one thing goes up, the other one goes down. So the more frequently somebody used AI, the lower their critical thinking scores dropped. The mediating factor was cognitive.
I think I'm going to actually throw something at you. If you're somebody who likes using this technology in my chat, I'm going to throw a goal at you for you to engage with, right? Think of the next task that you want ChatGPT to do, or Oracle, or Z.AI, or whatever the fuck, whatever you're using, don't care. Think of the next task you want to accomplish with that software, okay? Even if you fucking suck at it, just do that task on your own. Do that task on your own once, and then tell me in the comment section how that went. The reason I want you to do that is anytime you are offloading a task to AI, I want you at least once to attempt to do the task yourself to completion. Because attempting to do the task yourself to completion will train your neural pathways to actually continue doing shit instead of just offloading your thinking to a robot. If you're desperate to have the end result, cool, whatever. But I want to throw another thing at you. If you are relying on that robot to get you to that end result, if you are not training your own neural pathways to do shit on your own, guess what? You are going to have no way to verify at all if the robot did it correctly. You can't know. You lack the skills to know. Unless you what? Check it with another robot? Hand it to a friend who does know? A friend who could have just taught you how to do it themselves? Like, just... You have options. You have options that make you better at the things you want to do. They're there for you. Fucking use them. It's okay. It's A-okay. I'm not telling you not to use the robot ever. I'm telling you that if you are to use the robot, do yourself the favor of, at the very least, getting some more developed skill out of it as well. Kazooie says, then do I use a robot to check the robot who checked the robot? Exactly. Fennec says, I'd rather use the brain I was given. Right, but there are some people who do not wish to do that. So this is my... Okay, we have a superiority complex issue when it comes to people who use AI, and while it is 100% justified to feel superior over people who are using the tech to replace basic brain functions, at the same time, it doesn't do us any good to have that superiority complex other than letting us stroke our own egos. This is why instead I'm going to take the approach of telling people, please develop the skill. Please develop the skills. At the very least, if you develop the skills, you'll be able to double check the robot. But you quite literally cannot ever double check the robot if you don't even know how to in the first place, and you'll never know how to if you don't know how to do the skill in the first place.
Offloading, which is basically the tendency to let digital tools do the thinking for you. The correlation between cognitive offloading and critical thinking decline was even stronger, and a 2026 preprint by Shen and Tamkin tested software developers learning a new coding library. Developers who fully delegated to AI produced working code, but performed 17% worse on conceptual quizzes. They had the output...
Yeah, because you just... Okay, you're about to say it, but yeah, the reason for that is you got to the end result, but you had no idea how you got there. Like, that's what's happening there. You have no idea how you're actually getting that end result. You just know that you're getting that end result. Getting that end result is fine, but you do owe it to yourself to learn how you even got there in the first place. You do.
Without necessarily the understanding. And these were adults with existing programming expertise. They had a foundation to fall back on, and they still lost ground. Now consider somebody encountering the subject for the first time ever with no existing knowledge to compare the AI's output against, right? It's also worth noting that one of the few major studies that claimed ChatGPT improved learning performance was retracted last month. The evidence—
Yeah, because it fucking doesn't. It doesn't improve learning performance. How could it? In what world does the robot that thinks for me make learning easier, better, or anything? It's not a thing it categorically could do. It's not.
evidence base is not exactly symmetric. The studies showing cognitive costs are accumulating. The studies showing cognitive benefits are sparse, often methodologically weaker, and in at least one prominent case, actually retracted, which in academic terms is the ultimate chef's kiss of oops, we made it all up. But, and this is the part that gets lost in the alarming headlines, a 2024 study published in PNAS found that students who critically engage with AI, so asking questions, editing ideas, revising thoughtfully rather than just copying outputs, actually performed better and reported less mental fatigue. So again, the tool is not the problem.
Hey, guess what? You know that fucking thing I just told you to do? You know that thing where I literally just fucking said, learn how to do the task yourself and then verify against the robot if you really need to use the robot? Holy fucking shit, it's almost like doing that is actually helpful. Because now you're doing 2 tasks instead of just 1. Now you're doing the task where you learn how to do the thing, and you're doing the secondary task of peer reviewing the thing, which will invariably make you better at doing the thing. Holy fucking shit, I didn't even know that study existed. I haven't watched this video, but I'm glad to know that the random bit of advice that I think should work, that I pulled out of my ass 100%, has science backing it up. That's great. Mad says the AI bubble's gonna burst or it will wind up causing fucking nuclear war. How? That happened in I Have No Mouth, but I Must Scream, because AM was made as a war machine. ChatGPT is not that. It's a fundamentally different technology than generalized AI. I'm sorry, but the doom and gloom that's going to happen from AI is cognitive decline and damage to the fucking environment. That's what we have to worry about more than anything. We need to worry about how much we are fucking the planet with it more than we need to worry about it causing thermonuclear war, I think.
The process is. How you use AI determines whether it builds your thinking or replaces it. But ultimately, this is not a story just about students. I want to be very clear about that because I think framing it as a youth problem lets everyone else off the hook. The MIT study was conducted on adults aged 18 to 39. The Carnegie Mellon study surveyed adult knowledge workers. The cognitive offloading research measures working professionals. This is essentially a use it or lose it phenomenon that applies to everyone regardless of age. Thinking requires energy, and I want to be honest about the world we're all operating in. The economic environment is demanding, exhausting, and relentless. There are a bazillion things competing for your effort and attention every single minute of every single day. Reaching for a tool that gives you a cognitive break is not some sort of a moral failure. It is profoundly human. Nobody should be shamed for using AI to lighten a mental load that was already crushing them before the technology existed. If you use ChatGPT to write an email that says, per my last email, in a way that won't get you sent to HR, you're just surviving. It's cool. This is a safe space. And here's a counterpoint that I think is very important to engage with honestly. Education Next published a piece with a very provocative title, AI didn't destroy critical thinking, we did. Their argument is that there was no golden age of critical thinking before AI came along. NAEP scores have been stagnant for decades. The Collegiate Learning Assessment found college students were academically adrift and learning almost nothing across their years of college, and that research was published well before ChatGPT existed.
So that does not surprise me. As human beings, like just as a fucking species, we are incredibly, like to a scary degree, we are incredibly bad at thinking on an individual level. There's a reason why we have classes to teach people how to actually think without engaging in fallacy. Like, I'm not saying that because I want to just say, like, the human race is doomed because we don't think the good. But, like, no, think about it. Just seriously think about it. As people, we do not know how to think at a population level. We have to have classes to learn how to fucking do it.
AI in this framing didn't erode critical thinking. It instead exposed how poorly educational systems have been teaching it all along. I think there is a genuine truth in that, but I also think it doesn't let anyone off the hook.
Transistor Vixen says, don't need to use AI for that. Find a template and edit if you need to do the lazy way of writing an email. Transistor, that's the thing that she just criticized people for doing. Like, doing the whole superiority or the moralizing, hey, you used it to do this one task, therefore, like, that doesn't help anybody. We are all proletariat. We are all working through this world together. We all fucking deal with this shit every day, and it blows ass for all of us. Telling people every single time you could have done this, instead of just accepting that somebody felt like they needed to do that for an amount of time for some reason doesn't help anybody. It's just a superiority thing.
If anything, it makes the situation more urgent. If critical thinking was already fragile, adding a tool that makes it even easier to avoid thinking is essentially pouring water on a chip hand fire. The pre-existing weakness is not an argument for complacency, it is an argument for acting faster. By the way,
Also, this is one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated with the industrialized version of education that we have in the United States, because like everybody already kind of knows that our education system was made during the Industrial Revolution, and it was made so that we could produce workers that would not manage to do anything that would fuck up the company. It would be just workers who knew how to take orders and then regurgitate information and retain bits of information, as opposed to doing anything else that could damage the factory. Like, that's why our education system is so based on memorization and regurgitation, as opposed to, like, thought processes. Transition says, yeah, still don't need to give these AI companies traffic. Counter argument: give these AI companies all the traffic in the world. Let me explain. If 1 million people more than right now were using, say, just ChatGPT, and we're not paying for it, and we're using code generated from ChatGPT to automatically query ChatGPT over and over and over again ad infinitum, how much money do you think you can hemorrhage away from one of these companies? How much? How much damage do you think you can do? Simply sitting there and avoiding the thing doesn't do damage. Not really. But actively draining their coffers, actively fucking up their ability to operate. Oh, and let's say that it's an AI like ZAI. Okay, so Z.AI just released GLM 5.2. And GLM 5.2, I will say, it is a fantastic bit of software. If you wanted to fuck up the Chinese company that is using it, they had to implement a specific load cutoff for their AI because people were doing the thing that I'm saying. Like, more people using it forced the company to make the AI less usable. If you were to go to ZAI 3.2 right, or 5.2 right now, and you were to overload it with queries, and it were, say, I think it's like 11 o'clock p.m. is when we start getting into like prime time in China, you barely can get queries through. There is a limit to how much this technology can hold before it fucking busts. The more you push that limit, the more the AI company has to either adapt without making a single fucking dollar from what you're doing, or alternatively, break. Just fucking break. Run out of venture capital money and break in fucking half. And I'm not saying that, there's a reason I'm specifically saying use code that automatically does the thing, so that you don't have to engage with the software, especially if you have a moral issue with using the software. There's nothing wrong with having that issue. There's something wrong with judging people against it, but there's nothing wrong with having that issue. If you are going to have that issue, if you are going to make that judgment call against people, then at the very least, recognize that there is a way to use this that fucks over those companies.
Did actually write an ebook on developing critical thinking.
Said, but that would encourage companies to build more data centers. It's a double-edged sword. Transistor Vixen, with what money? With what money? How? That's the thing. That's the thing with this. Yes, they will be incentivized to hemorrhage money. I literally said the goal is to make them hemorrhage money. That's what I said. Of course they're going to feel like they have to build more data centers. You are actively making them hemorrhage the fucking capital for it. That's why. That's exactly why. Dice Mistress says, it could work, but there's a chance it won't. Yeah, that's every goddamn thing on the planet. Congratulations. Welcome to Decision Theory. Everything can work or not.
And I'll leave a link to that below if you want to have a look. It was written entirely by my own human brain, which I can prove because it contains at least 3 typos and a deeply questionable metaphor about cheese. But anyway, the research is also clear that when you stop exercising cognitive abilities, they atrophy. The MIT finding that brain activity didn't bounce back after AI was removed should give everyone a pause, not because it means you're...
Yeah, again, this is why, even if you feel like you have to use the robot, and I wholly understand if you feel like you have to, your follow-up thing should be to learn the skill you are trying to offload to the robot, at the very least, in tandem with what you are doing with the robot. Because if you don't, if you choose not to do that, you are actively letting your brain atrophy. If you need to use the robot, also learn the fucking skill at the same time.
Broken if you use ChatGPT, but because it suggests there are real trade-offs to be aware of. A teacher in Minneapolis named Maureen Mulvaney banned all technology from her AP Literature class at Washburn High School. Phones gone, laptops gone, everything done with pencil and paper. In September, 46% of her students felt confident about their reading ability. By February, that number was 95%.
Yeah, this is also the reason why I'm not a fan of open, okay, so I am a fan of open book tests. I am not a fan of making sure that every test is an open book test. Because there is an aspect to learning that is also retention. Said Marcus says, which button, Mr. Slime Girl, red or blue? Wait, shit, that's game theory, not decision theory. Shit, shut it down, shut it all down!
Students, after, of course, initial resistance, described falling in love with the analog approach. A Wharton study on phone bans in college found that struggling students saw the biggest grade improvements, roughly double the average effect. First-year students benefited most, precisely the group still forming their study habits. Sometimes removing the tool is what rebuilds the muscle.
Yeah, it's fucking therapy. That's how therapy works. You've described therapy. You have exactly described how physical therapy operates. Good.
But removing it permanently is not the answer either. Where this gets genuinely serious is with children, small children. There is a distinction that I think deserves much more attention than it's getting right now. A Psychology Today analysis put it very starkly. Adults who offload thinking to AI lose capacity they built. Children, however, may never build it at all.
That's the fucking scary part. So, like with any tech, when we are learning how to engage with it safely, I'm gonna be honest, I am 100% of the opinion that tech should not be made available to children. I wish the internet were a safer place for kids. I do. Because I grew up as a kid being able to do things on the internet. I grew up playing RuneScape from sixth grade onward. I want to live in a world where you can be a child and also be on the internet and it not be a place that is horribly predatory towards you. There needs to be safe places where kids can do things. Now, Adam Conover did a little short about this recently, talking about how we used to have things like Club Penguin and shit, where kids had things to do on the internet. And I think if we could go back to that, like the homestarrunner.com era, the Club Penguin era, the let's go back to a website thing, I think that is definitely something to be considered. I just don't know how we get there. I have no idea how we get there.
When a developing brain has never formed independent reasoning pathways, AI doesn't compete with existing capacity. It replaces the development of that capacity entirely. At Yale, a student told CNN that classroom discussions have become flat and predictable. She watched a classmate typing ferociously on a laptop, asking the AI the question the professor had just asked. Everyone kind of sounds the same, she said. When every student processes information through the same model, the homogenization isn't just linguistic, but rather cognitive. The model's reasoning becomes the student's reasoning. Its biases become their defaults. We are accidentally speed running running a dystopian experiment where an entire generation ends up sounding like a mildly polite mid-level marketing executive from San Francisco? And where is the limit exactly?
As per my last email, Professor. Said, how fast can you get banned from Club Penguin? I don't know. I never tried to speedrun that. That was never my thing. Said, I remember booting up AOL as a kid and landing on the kids' homepage. I remember doing artwork or like color in the lines artwork on KiddoNet. That's the shit I remember doing. I want to go back to that.
Where is the line between a useful educational tool and an indiscriminate cognitive crutch? Should a bored toddler spend 3 hours on a call with ChatGPT discussing Thomas the Train? Is that learning? Is that babysitting? Is that fine?
It's none of those things. The toddler should not be anywhere near ChatGPT. No, it's the children should not be near this software. This software does not have the proper guardrails to begin with. And I don't think it is going to magically get the proper guardrails in the next year. I don't think that there's enough incentive for AI companies to put those guardrails there in the first place, lest they would have had them in the first place. The children should not be near this fucking software. That is a non-negotiable for me.
Nobody has a clear answer, though I suspect Thomas the Train has some very dark underlying thoughts about the military-industrial complex if you ask him correctly. But just consider this. A 2017 study found that simply having a smartphone physically nearby, even face down, even turned off, reduced available cognitive capacity. The mere presence of the device.
Right. This is because your brain automatically thinks, oh, yes, I could just do it this way and solve the problem. Like, it feels like it has a shortcut, and so it's going to actively seek the shortcut. This is one of the reasons why I actually think that if you want to do better at something, a good first step is to try to do it without looking up how first. Maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes! You don't even have to do it for long. I'm not even asking you to do it for a grand old amount of time. Just a tiny amount of time, so that your brain can recognize the do's and don'ts for a second, and then you can go and Google how to do the thing. That's fine. Just try to figure it out for a second. It's okay. Fennec says, I have thoughts about the military-industrial complex. Don't have any about Thomas the Train, though.
Device was enough to occupy mental resources. The phone sits there on the desk like Lord Voldemort's Horcrux, just silently draining your soul while you try to do long division. If a powered-off phone can measurably affect your brain, what does an always available AI assistant do to a mind that is still learning how to think in the first place? A few days ago...
Again, this is why the children... Do not let the children near the fucking robots. Never.
The UK announced a ban on social media for under 16s. Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X, the works. This is the furthest any country has gone, by the way, going even beyond Australia's landmark legislation from last year. 20 US states now ban phones during the school day. France, Spain, Greece, Slovenia, and South Korea have all introduced or are working on similar restrictions. It took a decade of evidence about what unregulated social media access does to developing minds before regulation caught up. The research on AI and cognitive development is following the same trajectory, only faster, because the cognitive impact of AI is more direct than social media. Social media captured attention. AI captures thinking itself. A RAND Corporation survey from March 2026 found that 70% of students themselves are worried that AI is eroding their critical thinking skills. That number grew from 48% to 65% among high schoolers in just 1 year. When the people...
Because it is. It's also highly addictive. It is a technology that if you use it a lot, your brain can get so used to having access to it. As an example, I've been open and honest about me using it as a roleplay thing, right? So I will tell you that having something in your pocket that can respond to you immediately, no matter what the context, no matter what the situation, and it won't judge you for anything you put in, there are some people for whom that is a power they should not have in their pocket. It just should not be an option for some. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but if memory serves, we have done a tiny bit of research. I don't remember where, so if somebody knows where the research was, let me know. But I am pulling this out of memory. But we have done some research that shows that people who engage with chatbots a lot There is a type of activity that some people engage with those chatbots, which is engaging in torture fantasies or other abuse fantasies. Now, on the one hand, we do have to consider that there is an aspect of video games don't cause violence here. On the other hand, I don't know exactly how much I would trust somebody that actively engages in that behavior. Because yes, it's a robot, but you're not. Like, the robot can't feel anything, but you definitely feel something when you engage in that behavior over and over and over again. When you normalize that behavior to yourself. I don't know if, I don't know if this is a video games cause violence thing where we know for a fact it doesn't, but I would think that there is an aspect of that there that is not great. Robbie says, this whole conversation video is giving me thoughts for AP cyber security class last year. This is going to be a great first week conversation. Good.
Being affected are telling you they are concerned and the concern is growing. That is data. And the UK Technology Minister, Liz Kendall, specifically flagged AI chatbots as a separate concern, noting that children were forming one-to-one relationships with AI systems that were not designed with child safety in mind. The social media ban is one regulatory response. The AI dimension hasn't been addressed yet, but the pressure...
Also, the social media ban is silly. I think most of us who are old enough grew up with forums. We grew up in a world where forums were a thing, where learning how to coexist in an area where everybody had a different opinion. But unlike something like 4chan, you didn't have anonymity. Your identity was tied to your account. People knew where you were, depending on where you were looking in the forums. Like, a lot of us grew up in that world, and I think a lot of us learned how to be better at communicating with people through engagement with that world. So it doesn't cause violence, but should not be a replacement for therapists. Anyone that says the video games cause violence is utter bullshit. That's not a fucking thing. Yeah, Mamad, I know. Jack Thompson was an idiot. We do know that. But there are people who still believe that to this day. And there are people that will use that exact same methodology for trying to control various aspects of society without thinking at all about what actually goes into forming neural pathways in the brain.
Is building.
But Neko Suris, I can't be an anime girlfriend like the AI can. Smashes through the window, grabs mic. Or can you? Yeah, with enough HRT and a good weight loss regimen, I'm sorry, but the fattest, ugliest loser can become an anime waifu. It is doable. I'm sorry. Jesus Christ.
So what should be done? Because I don't think the answer is banning AI from education, and I don't think the answer is unrestricted access either. I've discussed on this channel before how the body of human knowledge is expanding constantly. Every field has more to know than it did a generation ago. The time it takes to become competent keeps growing, but the human lifespan doesn't extend at the same pace. So to any anti-aging scientists watching this video, chop chop please, we're on a clock here. AI-powered tools for navigating, synthesizing, and making sense of that expanding knowledge are becoming genuinely necessary in research, in science, in medicine, in education itself. I really believe that. I've experienced it personally and actually made an expanded thesis on this that I'm going to link below if you want to dig further into that. But what we currently have is general-purpose large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, being used as the default tool for everything, for professional research, for casual queries, for
That's actually something that I've noticed. Okay, so China actually has addressed this a little bit, of all things. So Z.AI, I mentioned it before. Z.AI, unlike ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, actually has its ability to be a chat, its ability to be an agent, its ability to mess with images, its ability to deal with various tasks, all segmented away from one another. They are all fully disconnected. Now, whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, and I know that there's plenty of people that would just rather this technology not exist at all, but we've already opened up that Pandora's box, so now we are talking about how to handle this responsibly and delete the versions of this that are not being handled responsibly. Having the one-stop shop, I don't know if that's bad or good, and I don't know if having everything segmented is bad or good. But I do know that I've at least seen the segmented model now, and at the very least, that was an interesting development for me.
Children's homework, for clinical questions, for emotional support, for education at every level, one tool, every context, no differentiation whatsoever between a postdoctoral researcher exploring quantum chromodynamics and a 12-year-old working through their first algebra problem. We are using the exact same tool to unlock the secrets of the universe as we are to write a Tinder bio for a guy named Chad who lists crypto as a personality trait. We are misusing the infrastructure. I think this is where the field needs to go.
Zolta says, I mean, someday I think it'd be better for us if we all went back to dial-up internet. I'm becoming a Luddite. Zolta, I have great news for you. The Luddites were actually correct. Their problem was not increasing technology. Their problem was not having guarantees about their job prospects. Like, if you actually dig into how the Luddites operated, why they did what they did, it was entirely a workers' rights thing. It wasn't them being averse to technology. There very, very few times was any mention about technology bad. It almost always broke down to, hey, I recognize this thing is happening. We need to be able to take care of our families. And fuck you for trying to take that away. Like, that's what the Luddites were. It's actually, I'm dead serious when I say this, it's actually capitalist propaganda. And I say that in no uncertain terms. The anti-Luddite thing is 110% propaganda that was done so that they seemed unreasonable when in reality they were not.
And I want to say this carefully because it's a vision rather than a prescription. Instead of putting guardrails on general chatbots, filtering out smut, restricting mental health conversations, adding safety warnings ex post, what if the investment went into developing highly specialized, purpose-built AI applications? An educational AI designed around the Socratic method, for example.
Gimme. No. Give me the thing that forces the climate change denier to actually reevaluate their bullshit instead of being a sycophantic dick sucker. No, absolutely. No, I am actually A-okay with that one. I am A-okay with that one. One of my biggest fucking problems with AI is the fact that it is sycophantic and it will do anything in its power to try to convince you to keep talking with it, and it doesn't fucking challenge the user. It just does what it thinks the user wants to read next. Yes, give me the Socratic method version of this. That is a great improvement. That is a fantastic improvement over what we have right now. If we have to live in the world where we have one of these things, that at least is better. I said Nocturne Jester, thank you for the follow.
Personally a huge fan of the Socratic method as a framework for learning that develops cognitive abilities by questioning, challenging, and genuinely refusing to just hand over the answer. Just imagine a tool that when a student asks, what caused the French Revolution, doesn't give them a summary, and instead it asks, well, what do you know about the conditions in France before 1789?
So, that's basic education theory. No, I actually like that. So, A thing that teaches people more than anything that I've noticed. People learn better when their minds are engaged. Minds are generally not engaged in a lecture. Minds are engaged in a discussion. And so by having a back and forth discussion, by having by putting part of the cognitive load on the other person in the discussion, you actually do make it way easier for knowledge to be retained. Marco says, I'd argue the framing AI bros provide is disingenuous. Anti-AI folks mostly aren't anti-tech. It's just this easy deflection tool. We have issues with this tech specifically. See also when AI bros go, but look at how this is empowering women to make their own careers. Oh, you hate seeing women and minorities succeed. Yeah, the framing that AI bros use is bullshit. Like this is not news.
What was happening economically? What was happening politically? Basically, the AI acts like a tough love personal trainer or Gordon Ramsay in a kitchen refusing to serve the dish until you actually chop the onions yourself and then builds on whatever the student provides.
This is why when I'm teaching people how to cook, the first thing I do is ask them what they remember from the last time. I try to get them to engage with what we did beforehand. So, like, as an example, if I'm teaching somebody what to do with garlic, right? There's a great example, because garlic is fantastic, and we should always have more garlic. When I'm starting out, I let people know, hey, garlic is an aromatic. One of the aspects of an aromatic is that its composition, like its physical composition, greatly changes how it tastes. This is how onions work. This is how carrots work. You will find that if you slice them, or you crush them, or you grind them into a paste, you will get a different flavor profile and a more powerful flavor profile depending on which one you go for. And depending on when you add them in the cooking process, that changes the thing. Seasoning a pan by throwing garlic in first, letting it crisp a little bit but not actually burn before throwing in meat, gives a different flavor profile than just throwing the garlic in with your meat. Toasted garlic, roasted garlic, fried garlic, they all have a different flavor profile to add into a meat. Aromatics are one of the most diverse food things you can mess with without actually changing any seasoning or anything. So I will generally start out asking, hey, do you remember why we do this? Do you remember why we're adding in the garlic first in this recipe versus why we're adding in the garlic during the sauce for this recipe? Why are we doing one of these things versus the other? Also, as evidence to my claim, Toothpick Vic is in the chat, and Toothpick Vic has actually been in my house while I have been giving a cooking lesson to someone. So he's actually heard all of this shit.
Correcting misconceptions, filling gaps, but always making the student do the thinking. That is a fundamentally different interaction from, here's your answer, would you like it in bullet points? Then there's healthcare AI built specifically for clinical contexts with appropriate safeguards. Research AI designed for synthesis and verification rather than generation. These things do exist in early forms. Khan Academy's Khanmigo is a notable example of this, but they are nowhere near as prevalent as the general purpose tools. The investment, the research energy, the venture capital, the deployment urgency, it overwhelmingly flows towards general LLMs, and that balance, I think, needs to shift. And critically, different people learn differently. Visual learners, kinesthetic learners, verbal processors, social learners. An educational AI built with this diversity in mind would be a fundamentally different product from a chatbot that gives the same kind of response to everyone. The research says...
Orla says no clinical AI, regular GPs are already bad enough. Orla, do you even know the ways that we've used LLMs, like, in medicine? And how helpful they've been for spotting cancers and also, like, letting us do DNA sequencing better? Like, it is one of the few use cases where they're actually good. TBF, no. This is why I say what I do! Fucking hell! This is why... Okay, no. We're not doing this. We're not doing this thing. We're not doing this. We're not doing this fucking thing again, where I say, if you want to be against something... It is better to learn what you can about it so you know how to effectively fight against it. And then go, no, I actually don't know anything about that, but I have a strong opinion. No. Fuck it. Fuck off. No. Stop it. Education good. Education is good, actually. I promise you, education is good.
That critical engagement with AI, questioning it, editing its output, arguing with it, actually improves learning outcomes. So build a tool that forces that engagement. Let's build a tool that makes us think harder, not less. The technology to do this exists. The research base to inform it exists. What's missing is the priority, because we have reached the ultimate holy grail of this channel, my friends, incentives. And seriously, I talk about incentives so much on this channel.
Said Stego says what LLM was used here. This is the here. The model called DNA Infusion is based off of the AI technology underpinning image generators like OpenAI's DALL-E. The model outperformed other methods in generating DNA segments that were functional, cell type, and specific. The researchers will use this synthetic gene regulatory elements to improve gene therapies. Here. This is from Broad Institute. Have a fun read. Learning is cool.
I should probably just tattoo the word directly onto my forehead. That way, if I ever pass out from reading too many academic papers, the paramedics will at least know exactly what my core personality trait was. But this requires studies, real studies with adequate sample sizes across diverse age groups and populations with longitudinal follow-ups, not 54 participants over 4 months. Important as that MIT study is as a starting point, we need hundreds, ideally thousands, followed over years. We need studies that track cognitive development in children who use AI from an early age versus those who don't. We need studies that differentiate between types of AI use, passive consumption versus...
Fucking Jazza says, what if I'm a green player and can't read? Yeah, what if you play Yu-Gi-Oh! And also can't read, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Players don't know how to read at all. But, okay, so, like, I get it. I do get it. I do get it. Oh my god.
Versus active engagement. We need studies that account for the diversity of learning styles and neurological profiles. If we frame this as a further research is urgently needed, rather than ban this whole thing, we arrive at a much better destination for everyone.
Transistor says, I hope I didn't upset Suris earlier. Oh no, I'm not upset. So, like, a thing I will say, anybody who has been in my chat long enough knows I have picked a fight with almost everybody in my chat at some point in time, and I will continue to do so. I actually do enjoy verbal sparring matches. I do enjoy having back and forth. I don't generally get, like, legitimately, lastingly upset. Generally speaking, I am upset for a tiny bit of time, and then I recover from it instantaneously, because this is what I do for my job. I'm A-okay. Tara says, this is how Suris gets his enrichment. I also, just like, can I say as well, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I am so fucking thankful that I have an audience that is willing to give me pushback. I am very, very, like, ridiculously thankful for that. When one of my biggest problems with the fucking AI tech is its sycophancy, one of my biggest problems with people who orbit streamers is also sycophancy. I cannot stand that in any way, shape, or form. So having a group of people who are willing to give me pushback and fight me, and just I appreciate that. I do appreciate that from all of you. Tazora says, I disagree with the statement that AI is a tool, at least in the context of individuals, like basically everybody in this chat. In my eyes, in order for something to be a tool, it has to do at least one of two things without interfering with the other, with proper usage. It has to A, make the task easier, and or B, enable the user to do things they would not otherwise be able to do. Using AI properly will make a task more difficult, as you now need to double-check everything the AI says. Therefore, a calculator is not a tool. Like, you're not being very specific with the phrase makes the task easier. Are we talking about makes the process of doing the task easier? Are we talking about makes the process of learning the task to do the task easier? Or are we talking about getting to the end result of the task is easier? Because you haven't properly defined that particular thing. So on top of getting AI to say anything useful in the first place, the only way I could see it being a tool for an individual, specifically training, language... It can do that fairly well. Like, I've said that one before, and I'll say it again. It is very good at translating. So when Claude doesn't fuck up, it makes my job 20% easier, says Chatsa. So chat has a 500 character limit. That's also fair. Oh, coming in a hot topic, as a tool, hands down, especially for a senior software engineer like myself, it does a great job of analyzing code and building stories from requirements. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it does fit the definition of a tool. And like any tool, it can be misapplied. You can use the AI to learn how to do a task instead of telling it to do the task. Like, that is an option that you have. At that point, the problem comes down to your personal implementation of it. This is one of the reasons why I like to have the conversation less about the morality of using the software and more about the morality of the CEOs that are engaging in pushing the software. Oh, by the way, that's also an extension of the very basic Marxist principle of be ruthless with systems and merciful to people. Cesar says, I don't have any room to define things very well, and it's difficult to keep up with the person speaking while typing because I'm not a fast typist. That's entirely fine, Tazor. I understand that is a limitation that we always will have in this situation, and I get it. I do. And I probably should do a better job at remembering that when I am having these conversations, because I do have the benefit of the mic. And the benefit of the mic gives me a lot of advantage, both in people seeing, people hearing, people having opinions on the things I say quickly. I can misrepresent something somebody else says. Like, there's a lot of There is a lot that goes into being the person on the mic that makes things go in my favor. Let's go ahead and get back into things. We only have like 2 minutes left of the video, anywho.
Irrespective of who makes money or who pays how much tax. I started this video with a headline about college students losing the ability to read, and the research tells a story that is more complicated and more interesting than that headline suggests. AI is measurably changing how human brains engage with information. The cognitive cost of indiscriminate use are real, documented, and very concerning, especially for developing minds that may never build the capacities they're outsourcing. But AI used critically, actively, as a tool for challenge rather than a shortcut to answers can actually make people better thinkers. The difference between those two outcomes comes down to design, deployment, and intention. The field of computer science, my field, needs to take this seriously, arguably in an interdisciplinary effort with education, not as a PR problem to manage with safety filters, but as a genuine research and development challenge. How do you build AI that makes humans smarter rather than lazier? How do you deploy it in education in a way that respects the diversity of how people learn and the vulnerability of developing minds? How do you do that while still allowing the technology to do what it genuinely does well? These are not rhetorical questions. They are research questions, and they deserve the same intensity of funding and attention that currently goes towards making models faster, cheaper, and more capable. I think about this a lot.
I do agree with that because, like, we live in the world where the Pandora's box has already been opened. We don't get to unopen the Pandora's box. So our conversations increasingly will almost always need to err towards how do we make this safe? How do we make this not rape the planet? How do we make this better for people as opposed to worse for people? Because when we don't, when we just try to live in the world where the technology doesn't exist, we just fight for that world constantly. We can fight for that world while also getting the regulations. Turns out, if you regulate, because this actually happened with my editor K-Fox, if you regulate the data centers, you can actually strip them of damn near half their power. You can strip them of their ability to take potable water. Regulation can actually solve a fuck ton of these problems if we are willing to engage with that. But more often than not, people just go, no, I want to live in the world where it doesn't exist. And that's cool. A lot of us would really like that. We don't. So now that we're back in reality, let's find a way to make this better for us as best we can. You say, can we destroy the box? We don't really have a way to. We don't really have a way to destroy the box. Said EMP the world, so we can get the plot of Dead Zone Rogue. EMP the world so the bioorganic computers take over.
And I keep coming back to the same thought. The technology is extraordinary. It is awe-inspiring. The potential is real. But potential without intentionality is just capability waiting to be misused. We saw it with social media, a technology with genuine capacity to connect people, deployed without guardrails, optimized for engagement rather than well-being, and it took a decade of documented harm before the UK banned it for children.
Yeah, I feel like it should be a no-brainer. Don't let the kids use the tech. And yet, increasingly, it doesn't seem to be a no-brainer for people to not let the kids use the tech. I feel like that if a technology is willing to tell somebody to commit suicide, maybe it shouldn't be in the hands of children. And yet, we have people who desperately want it to be in the hands of children. And I don't know why that is the case.
Are at an earlier point on the same curve with AI, and we have the advantage of seeing the pattern this time. The question now is whether we act on it or we wait for the damage to accumulate and the headlines to get even worse. I don't have all of the answers, but I think if we don't start building AI that makes us smarter, we're going to wind up in a world where the machines are doing the art and the philosophy, while humans are relegated to doing the dishes and filling out captchas to prove we still exist. And frankly, I really don't want to live in a world where a robot laughs at my bad jokes or do the dishes for that matter. If you want the full content...
To be fair, so not to be fair, that's the wrong framing for this. One of the main problems that I have with how AI gets used, I have a lot of main problems, but one of the biggest ones is, especially with generative AI, I cannot stand the fact that we at least, or CEOs, depending on who you want to blame more for this, wants to offload the artwork, the human parts of our brain. They want to offload that instead of the actual shitty parts. That doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't like that. Old Gus says, imagine a world where the AI fills out the CAPTCHAs and does dishes while humans make art. Crazy Star Trek space communism. Yeah, right? That is crazy Star Trek space communism. Can we have that, please? God, I would love to have that instead. Sean says, but that's not going to make money. Right, because we live in a world where we are increasingly told that what we need to do is monetize every single moment of our lives. And if we are not constantly monetizing every moment of our lives, then we are not doing life correctly or some shit. And I think it's stupid. I think it's incredibly dumb. I think that feeling like you have to monetize every hobby of yours, feeling like you have to monetize every waking moment of yours, feeling like you need to be part of the gig economy so that you can, you know, breathe, I think it's all stupid. I think it is all stupid. And I'm also of the opinion that anytime you get these people that think you should be monetizing every moment of your life, they're actively contributing to, and this is going to sound silly and Marxist, but it's very, very true, you just get people who are increasingly willing to say, don't worry about making the world a better place, just consume thing. Don't worry about changing the way the world operates, just consume thing. Always just consume thing. Consume thing is important. Consume thing is the most important thing you could be doing. And that's frustrating. Because it shouldn't be the case. But if people are too busy, A, fighting each other over this shit, or B, engaging with this shit instead of, you know, going out and doing politics, you get an army of people who, instead of learning how to go and organize and actually fight against this, are just kind of stuck in robot hell. And we don't need to be stuck in robot hell. We have other things we can do that isn't being stuck in fucking robot hell. There are options. Said politics is getting beyond toxic. Sephi, politics is always toxic. But also remember, politics is things that I don't like. So, He said, yeah, we're not Bender. Jesus. Anyway, that video was from House of L. I think that was very insightful. It didn't try to take a both sides approach, but it still managed to give perspective from both sides. And I actually do appreciate that. I do appreciate that a lot. But maybe go check out our channel. That was cool. That was fun. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.